Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are Free TV, and it is Friday, TGIF, August 7th. So glad to be back with you here on the channel. Jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So great to be back with you. And I always start by saying thank you to everyone supporting the channel. Thank you, Nancy, for the donation on top of that. I so appreciate all of you who keep this channel going. I am just, so grateful. And again, like I said in my last video, if you could please like and share and subscribe. Literally this channel, since I came back up, it rushed to 10,000 viewers who were psyched to see me back up after the takedowns. And it sits at 10.8 thousand. It's ridiculous. And so that's on Rumble, but other channels, YouTube, etc. It's going along. And the shadow banning is immense. So I just need your help in trying to get through that with the likes, shares, and subscribes. All right, thanks for listening to that. So, okay, we're going to jump in. We have so much news today here on a Friday. Thank God I'm free. Thank God it's Friday, old school style. And let's just jump in. As I'm doing this video, I think the Senate is voting on the Todd Blanche um, uh, nomination going through. And it was very interesting today as we watched, what's his name, Doug Cassidy. We watched Senator Cassidy, Republican out of Louisiana. He was crying at the end of his speech of why he's now going to vote yes to have Blanche in as permanent AG. And this is interesting because, of course, we had yesterday, after John Solomon outing to the world that it was Thune, and it was Thune, Tom Cotton, and Todd Blanche that were basically stopping what is the DeGeneva, Judge DeGeneva, or Joe DeGeneva. He is down there in Florida with U.S. Attorney Canones, and they have these huge cases for the conspiracy against rights and everything. And John Brennan being such a central part of this when it goes back and back into all of the layers of it. And so he exposed that the Senate committee and judiciary committees have been blocking it with Cotton and Thune to send all of the transcripts of those interviews that absolutely show John Brennan's lies. And so we had Tom Cotton come out the following day, which was yesterday, and say, oh, I'm sending him over. I'm sending him over, and then you have the question that Solomon put out was, hey, why isn't Todd Blanche subpoenaing them? It's been 8 months and definitely 4 months of really intense trying to get these transcripts. And AG Blanche's answer to that, acting AG, was, I assure you there's no daylight between between me and Senator Thune. And I was like, well, there should be a paper little thing in between there called a subpoena. So interesting answer. There's no daylight there. That's a little creepy, if you ask me, seeing as Thune has been obstructing all of Trump's agenda for ever since he came in as leader of the House, leader of the Senate, and of course on this end, I want him. I want Mike Lee in there. Mike Lee has of course come out and say we think we're going to be able to get parts of the SAVE Act through the reconciliation bill, and thanking Barracio for the whips and all of this. But anyway, back to the situation here of what Cassidy did. So Cassidy made this speech, which was very interesting, where he cried at the end. It's really amazing. And he basically said, I've been on the phone to Bill Barr, right? I've been on the phone to former AG Bill Barr, youngest AG with George H.W. Bush, and then back with Trump and everything, the cover up that led to the coup in 2020 and the Epstein stuff, all of it, massively. And Blanche, of course, with his former stint at the Southern District of New York as U.S. Attorney, everything Epstein file, funkadoodle that went on last fall, just all of this, not last fall, but beyond and, way before that, everything to do with the Comey trial, everything to do with so much. Okay. And so Cassidy basically said, I was talking with Bill Barr multiple times. I talked to him last night, And okay, and sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself as I'm speaking. I do that same sometimes. And it's, trying to calm it down. Okay. So basically, he says, I question, does Bill Barr think that Blanche will be able to stand up to President Trump, right? This is, a Republican stand up to President Trump, basically massively to do with this anti-weaponization um, fund that Blanche had supported. And then Blanche said he made a mistake to Senator Cassidy. So Cassidy's putting all this out there where he basically is calling the anti-weaponization fund a slush fund to attack Trump's enemies. And so our own feckless, disgusting Senate going against Trump's agenda for the fear of who it's going to expose for all the crimes that have been committed in the coup, in the takedown of his former administration, all of it. And let's remember, with John Bolton and everything he's gone through with his jail, prison time, right? Club Fed coming for him. And, there was a lot of Bill Barr stuff, this interconnection between Bolton and Barr that had to do with this national security information, how it was going, sort of, pay for play, national security access that seemed to run through a thread for entertainment purposes only through Bill Barr. Okay. And so I'm wondering what's in there about this. And it's, it's a hard rabbit hole to access, but it's interesting. And so when we look at this, and Cassidy is saying, um, you know, uh, when I talked to Blanche, he said, the supporting of the slush fund anti-weaponization fund, was a mistake. And Blanche also told Cassidy, according to him, that it wasn't me who let off the J6ers, who pardoned them. It wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. I can't tell Trump what to do, and I will push back against Trump. Okay, and so very interesting. He said, Bill Barr assured me that all decisions are ultimately made by President Trump, and Bill Barr, excuse me, Todd Blanche. Okay, can't tell him what to do. So very interesting. And then he cried. Okay, so there we are, right? They got Cornyn, they got Tillis, they wrangled them in, and then we get the crying Cassidy today. So we'll see. We will see what goes down in this vote. We know Murkowski and Collins are no's on the Republican side. So that's that, and we'll see what happens tonight with the confirmation hearing. Very, very interesting, I would say. So much to be inferred there when you read between the lines of what we've been dealing with for all of this time and who these Senate traitors are, okay, to not only the Trump agenda, but to the will of the people. Certainly with the SAVE Act and certainly with the weaponization fund. Okay, so the anti-weaponization fund is what it is, okay? It's anti-weaponization. It is being able to prosecute for all the crimes done by the weaponized government under Biden that made so many people, their lives, so many people are actually dead because of it, but the loss of livelihoods, the loss of freedoms, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And so going on from there, I'm going to go into, we also had the Russia Sanctions bill that passed through the Senate today. It has to go to the House. And this is very interesting. Let's kind of get into it here a bit. But it's the Lindsey O. Graham Sanctioning Russia and Iran Act. Okay. And so Blumenthal is the co-sponsor there. And this, of course, began quite a while ago, trying to get these Russian sanctions in, right? As if we don't already haven't frozen 100 billion of their assets here in the U.S., 250 billion in Europe. But there's a whole, big behind the scenes going on here where, of course, Lindsey got dead, right? And Darlene got put in. And it's interesting when you see things like on AWK, what channel I'm referencing, where they come out and say, it turns out Lindsey was a hero. He only had $1.1 million, to his name. I mean, you can't, that's so ridiculous on its face. Nobody with, thinking brain cells that, has been in all of this could think that Lindsey Graham has $1.1 million to his name. That's insane. Okay. He has been the number one Ukraine advocate, and over there back and forth, him and I don't know, I don't think it's Blumenthal, I think it's Coons out of Delaware, Biden's bestie. They had apartments, right? Didn't they blow up? Yeah, I think they got blown up. Right at the same time when Lindsey Graham was deaded, and so this is what happened. So we get Rand Paul voting no, so it passes through the Senate with 86-11 vote. So all the Dems are really for it. Okay, they're really against Todd Blanche, but they're 100% for this. This Russia, let's take the money from Russia, okay, and of course Iran, right? But this gets into what ended up happening is way different than how they had hoped it would go. They wanted it to be 500% tariffs on all the countries that are buying Russian oil and gas, okay, and that these would be applied mandatorily, okay, that by Congress, and that the president would have no executive authority over this. And of course, it got totally changed. And that's how it's going through Senate, which is now at 100% tariffs, okay, can be applied on top of already existing tariffs, 100 million, whatever percent, okay, on the top 5 Russian oil and gas purchasing nations. Okay, so, but it only happens with the president's approval. All right. And so this is a totally different animal altogether. This is Trump having the ultimate say on how these sanctions happen and what. And so so we got China and India, of course, as huge purchasers. And then, of course, we have the EU. Just this, in this last year, they bought more Russian oil gas during all of this going on. We hate Russia. We hate Russia. Go Ukraine. Bought more oil and gas from Russia, even after blowing up their pipeline, which the people, the Nord Stream 2, right, with the Ukrainians and the NATO MI6 crowd blowing that up, right? Joe Biden came out in the beginning of his presidency and said that pipeline's going to get destroyed, and then it did like 5 days later. They've arrested them now. It's Ukrainians that had to take the hits. And so, even in Germany, you've got German MPs coming out and saying, why would we, keep trusting these people who blew up our own pipeline? He's talking about Ukraine, right? And so it's very interesting here as this huge, huge Leviathan is being turned by Trump. And that's, I didn't kind of intro this video, but we need to look at all of this, and I'm going to get into it later in the video, where people need to remember that Maga is the third party system, okay? And we know all of this stuff of, Tucker Carlson putting out his kind of introductory hour-and-a-half video, way too long for an introductory video for trying to tell people what you want this third party to be. Very sophomoric in my opinion, but I'll talk about it later in the video. But to remember that we have the entire, we're already in this World War III, and we have a massive Leviathan to turn around. And Trump and Besson et al. Are doing the job, doing a massive, incredible job, okay? And yet, anyway, I'm going to save that for later. Okay, so back to the Russia situation here with this bill passing. So we get that now it's in Trump's control. It's 100% tariffs, and of course we have Xi coming in September to do with all of this. We all the exposure coming out of Natalie G. Winters, etc. Pete Hegseth chiming in with General Milley as Joint Chiefs of Staff, and all the 10 generals that are all like, tight like this with the CCP, and the election stealing, the election crimes of the CCP. So all of this buildup around China that's way in the background, hardly anybody really talking about it when it comes to kind of the mainstream alternative media channels, because it is such a big it's huge, the China stuff. And so while we look at this, we're going to see a lot of changes coming, and it's going to be changing, I think, quite rapidly in the next several months, that are going to change a lot of minds and get people sort of off the we hate Trump and this isn't what we voted for position, okay? Because the problem is that unfortunately people aren't educated about the massive intricacies, and and it is very hard to communicate that. And I wish that there would be better communication about it from the administration. However, they are constantly attacked from every single angle to hobble every single attempt that they are making to make America sovereign and safe and secure and productive and economically viable again. And it is from every angle. And so there's only so much that can be said. And so that is where we're at. And so, of course, Zelensky was, when he came for the Graham funeral, right? Just showing up for the funeral. Very interesting. He met with 60 senators, trying to push this bill. And of course, there is something like 1.2 billion in this bill, I believe, of the like 100 billion of the frozen assets of Russia, that I think within this can be spent towards Ukraine military support. So that is disturbing, in my opinion, right? Because we're having Russia now basically saying, like, look, Europe, you better stop. You better just stop, like, all of this support of Ukraine that's now just like, actively going after civilians on Russian soil and Russian territory. And it's kind of like we're going to make Ukraine and Poland Russia. We're basically going to make Ukraine, Russia, and Poland again. Basically, let's stop fooling around. It's been years, and this is all going to end. This is the whole east of Ukraine is now Russia has completed. They just took out, I think yesterday, massive new amounts of military and intelligence headquarter areas. So it's ending, and yet Europe and NATO and the bankster cartels need it. They want it. They have this massive need for like the Gog Magog, right? They need the Gog Magog. They want Iran and Russia war to be combined. They're trying to work the angles, and luckily the Trump administration maintains 2 steps ahead of them. Interestingly enough, we see that with the Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia military pact they just signed, which was like a NATO style agreement for an Article 5 situation. If one attacks one attacks all, right? And Saudi Arabia has tons of, our military weaponry in sales. Saudi Arabia positioned to be a military might, Turkey being the biggest NATO military power, and Pakistan with its nukes, right? And so that is a huge, again, it keeps being this juxtaposition of protecting what is going to be the new sovereign nations having power without the control of, Iran's real, right? Iran's real, the city of Iran's real. Okay. Okay. You can break that down how you want, but it is all happening. So this, at the same time that Trump also in the last couple of days said he's not sending any more missiles to Ukraine, that will not be happening, and we hear about this kind of going to take advantage of Ukraine's right, Israel, massive drone capabilities that they have been able to perfect in the field, really as a proof of concept for the world to elevate to this new level of drone warfare that Israel has been doing in smaller amounts, but just not in this massive war that is Russia and Ukraine. Okay, so moving on from there, I think I will go on and just add this bit. So the signing of the pact between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and Turkey, it's terrifying in a way, but it's also, it allows Saudi Arabia to have the nuclear agreement with the U.S. for the building out of nuclear energy in Saudi Arabia. and letting the whole creating nuclear weapons go, right? And so that's an interesting thing. And so going on from there, I think I'm going to, will I get into the third power stuff? Yeah, I think I might just mention, where, they're at the same time as all this is going on, and where people are, third party, we hate Trump, on all these other levels. And in my last video, I was saying, don't freak out about this third party thing. And I want to talk about, MAGA is the third party. We're fighting a leviathan of criminals, right? And just because, the Israel operatives and all the other operatives out there, through intelligence, right? The deep state, all of them the same. We know in my last video, it comes out of massive NATO networks. It's all the USAID money paid, networks that's no longer being paid by us. But you have this massive amount of money between the MI6 crowd, the NATO crowd, the Israel crowd, all influencing, saying, we're the new MAGA, we control MAGA, we're MAGA. And it's just like, no, you're not, right? But because, Trump doesn't come out and say they're not, right? And because Trump is having to deal with multiple layers of stuff, like the Epstein cabal, and how that cabal is so entrenched in everything, and is such a massive roundup that there's no getting that through an easy thing of just saying, hey, we're going to go after all the Epstein people. I know that people want that to happen, but it can't happen quite yet, not quite yet. So we're all just in this place of watching what's happening, while economically they're trying to save the nation. And so we're watching, when you look at like the yen carry trade and everything that Scott Bessent did, over the weekend with, with the whole, like, we're doing a euro currency, exchange here with Japan. We're basically, helping Japan with their major money problems, as Japan has been raising their interest rates, right, to hobble, right, what has been the yen carry trade, to borrow on cheap yen, and then turn that into dollars, and then make in euros, and make huge investments, and just borrow and spend, and just keep making all this huge percentage on the borrowing and spending. And now that Japan has been raising its interest rates, as the new prime minister is working with Trump and Bessent, there is being, of course, this huge issue of all of this, people having, these corporations, all these massive players on the European front, are having to sell assets to pay their debts, to meet their loans, right? And so Bessent comes in and does this currency swap and euros, and basically says, we don't want you to dump our bonds. We know you're in trouble with everything going on here with, people being able to meet their debt on the trade. And so, but what we're seeing here is getting closer and closer. What looks like could happen. Okay, this is right at the time where Bessent just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, July 15th, I think, confirmed after an audit of Fort Knox, right, that there is $1 trillion worth of gold in Fort Knox. I think that's 261.5 million ounces. He says it's the largest stockpile of gold in the world. And you're seeing with this yen carry trade takedown, that there's all this move into gold, all this move into crypto. And it's all being orchestrated by the man who took down the pound, right, for George Soros. But this is Scott Bessent back in the day. And so this is all happening now against the euro, and also other currencies like maybe the Swiss franc. But what's going to happen, and what people like Tom Luongo have said, is that, if the yen reaches a 2% interest rate, if she makes that happen with a 2% interest rate in Japan, and if the U.S. then suddenly you see Warsh untie his hands and come down to where there's also a 2% interest rate, then it's kind of a blockout of all of that debt that everyone has acquired since the yen carry trade, and it's going to be crushing for the EU and other um, huge banksters across the world. So we're going to be watching that happen. I'm obviously not a huge money analyst on this channel whatsoever, but this is all of this is so crucial. This is as we had Trump uh, in DC today having this huge panel on basically make mining great again. This is to basically to reopen mines that have been closed and to open new mines, and also to fund. I think they're putting $100 million into training miners. They're saying basically half of the mining who still exist, the miners out there who do that for a living, and a lot of them for generations, that they're retiring out. Half of them will be retiring out in the next few years, and that we want to create new generations of good paying jobs with great pensions and futures and benefits, etc. For miners, and they're putting $100 million into training miners, and so that was part of it. But this is basically, he is saying that we're opening the first rare earth mine again. Okay, I think it's in Nevada. Nevada. He said in 70 years, Trump said today, and he's like, 70 years, can you believe it? Since we haven't had a rare earth mine, rare earth mineral mine operating in the United States. And he talked about the aluminum smelter that's happening in Oklahoma for the first time since 1980. He's talking about national defense stockpile of 12 billion in critical minerals. He's talking about basically tariffing the countries that where companies in the U.S. are buying copper or aluminum and steel from foreign countries. He will be tariffing that to protect the U.S. and its renewed production of these things. Saving U.S. steel. Um, you know, jobs back, okay, creating things that are imperative to the survival and self-sufficiency of the nation. Back to Hamiltonian economics that J.D. Vance has been the one to keep putting out there, that this is where we're going. And that's why I say to everybody who constantly is saying, oh, we're not, Trump's doing nothing for the economy, he's doing nothing, as if it's like instant soup, that suddenly there's amazing jobs out of everywhere. And so people are like, well, we just want, could everything just be cheaper? And I think there is a huge thing that will be coming for goods and services to be cheaper, but basically goods, gasoline, and what we buy at the store. I do believe that is coming and in the works. So he's also talking about there's going to be, they're opening in Washington State that's being burned down by the same old cabal, with people not being allowed to return to their properties with the Spokane area fires. And there's also the even further eastern Washington fires that are, again, another geoengineering weather warfare. So that's always criminal and evil and awful, and massively set up. I'll link a great video by Skywatcher below for you to watch on how that all happens, how suddenly the on the radar you watch, and there's like 5 fires that break out immensely throughout the state at the same time, and the radar weather manipulation arrays. And of course, there's always an arsonist that they try to peg it on, right? It's like a criminal who just got out of prison and was sent to go set fires. That's happening again. And so anyway, you can watch that below where Skywatcher does a great job breaking that down as it's happening presently. We pray for the people whose lives are being destroyed in Washington by these fires. It's disgusting. It's evil. It's evil. How's it ever? Okay. Is this part of it? Don't know. But there is going to be this new battery plant in Washington State. I know there's 2 major AI data centers that are supposed to be built there as well, and I think put on hold. But yeah, so this is a very disturbing element of all of this, and who's behind it? Who's behind the burning down of of people's lives and to replace them. Okay, that is a subject that I deeply want us all to find and get to the bottom of. And so basically, we have the Santa Cruz Copper Project in Arizona, a boron mine in Southern California, um, uh, all kinds of stuff, right? And this is the build out of our mining again, and you can't have a modern economy without it, without buying it all from outside. And that's why we are so crippled, because so much money is produced through that part of our economy when it comes to minerals and it comes to production of all the uh, everything that makes everything in this country. So very interesting to watch there. And speaking of the box stores that are way overcharging us for food, et cetera, et cetera. Well, very interesting. You have Senator Josh Hawley coming out, and he's going after this data selling of these big box stores. And remember, it was like, I don't know, back at least 20 years ago, where they started doing the clubs, or become a member. Every time you come, put your phone number in, and you get your discounts, right? Whether it's like Amazon, a Prime, or a Whole Foods, or any of these, any supermarket, okay, that is a national box store. You are a member, right? And so everything's recorded of what you're buying. And what ends up happening is Kroger, for instance, Kroger Foods, they are making $500 million a year per customer, okay? Excuse me, not per customer, but $500 million a year on customer data. And he talked about there being an average of 62 pages of data per customer. These are all being sold to create this social profile on you, and to have everything you ever buy on file, plus to for them to develop this mechanism to know who everybody is, what they're buying, the social credit score stuff, all of it. Okay, to identify you as happened in the 1930s, right? Where it wasn't until then where we were all super cataloged, whether it was Germany with the Nazis, whether it was Palestine with the Zionists, whether it was the USA with FDR's Reconstruction, and suddenly everybody had to have a social security number, and on and on. Same with, of course, Stalin's Russia, where everybody suddenly was attached to a number, and now you were an economic unit and an energy unit that was mechanized and monetized. And instead of the country being prosperous, it was, we're going to leech and suck the life out of every human being. And that became the new way of doing it. And so this is the way that the big box stores are doing it with your data. And so when something's free, like a membership, or you get discounts just for being a member, you are the product. And so, just saying it again, um, as much as you can, please stop. We are the problem. And it's like, this is the issue when we talk about third parties, and we talk about, oh, the boomers, everybody hates the boomers now. This ageism thing, which has been used throughout time, whether it's Bolshevism, the Maoist revolution on steroids, that the weaponization of the younger generations to hate and blame the older generations. And you can absolutely say, yeah, with the 60s and the counterculture, and the rejection at that time, they were rejecting the older population, right? We just want to be free to do whatever we want, right? And then they got older, and then we're like, oh, what do we want? We want money, right? And so, all the borrowing on the children and all of that's very valid and real. But what it ends up being is this hatred of older people, and they are the memory bearers and the ones who actually have the wisdom and the cellular memory. of the ancestors. It's why every culture that doesn't disrespect their elders has long histories, okay, of continuity, right? And I find it just amazing that all these people that were MAGA, whatever you want to call it, but just basically supporting the saving of our nation, that suddenly Trump's an 80-year-old senile boomer, which is absolutely insane. He is 80, but even Tucker Carlson in his video yesterday is saying, how can you have an 80-year-old president? Like, what's wrong with you? What is, it was you, Tucker. You've been supporting Trump for all these years, right? And suddenly now he's an old 80-year-old senile guy. It's absolutely ridiculous, and the absolute 100% the reverse is true. We have a president who hardly sleeps. He's in war mode because we are in war. Now, I'm just talking about Iran. I'm talking about the fight to save the country. And he might not say all the things we all like to hear, but who could? Who could, right? We know who Trump is, and we understand that he is, going to say what he is focused on. And that is what he's capable of doing. The one thing that could happen is there could be more happening with the, with his communications team, and that people aren't, hanging on Truth Social. And Trump puts out his Truth Socials, and they're always, they very, very, very right to the point lately, exposing everything, like with Al Said. Let's talk about Al Said for a second, right? Who won the primary to go against Mike Rogers. Well, it's clear, Trump came out and said, I think yesterday, we're going to nip in the bud communism in this country. And, one of the ways of doing that, of course, is that we have with El Sayed, it's very clear that his father-in-law is a massive Muslim Brotherhood, guy. Huge amounts of money involved here with Muslim Brotherhood, and also this ties in with Wayne County and et cetera. And Trump did expose, again, how we know up in Michigan that there is this Wayne County massive election fraud, of course, from 2020. But basically, this gets into the situation of terrorism experts who have said before Congress that we have, with Saeed, his father-in-law ran CARE in Michigan. Okay, CARE has been designated a terrorist organization. So has Muslim Brotherhood. So there are ways to go forward in this. And I think his name was Samuel Arian. And they're also involved in this M-Gauge situation, which is the voter fraud operation that happens in all of these mosques signing up voters, right? All of this. So very interesting to watch what's going to go down, but a lot's going to be going down in the next few months. You want to be ready to go, ready to really, right now, working for the midterms is just so vital. Get with your person, and just do the volunteer time and do the donating of what you can for your local and state politicians, because they are the ones who are going to be able to stop the Islam, the local taking over the land, the planning committee stuff, all of it. But there's somebody running in Florida, right? James Fishback. You all have probably heard of him. He's running, and he put out the announcement recently of Byron Donalds, being caught up in this Corey Mills, sex for hire, international, human trafficking situation, basically of hiring foreign sex workers and some Maryland fancy vacation they took, I guess, together for entertainment purposes only. And so coming up against him, and he is very untrustworthy, Donalds. And so we got James Fishback coming out huge with basically saying, we're going to end H-1B, visas as much as we can as far as accessing Florida. He's running for governor of Florida against basically Jay Collins and Donalds. And Jay Collins is the lieutenant governor now, great guy, but he does seem to, James Fishback definitely does have it all down when he's speaking specifically about the things that we really want done. He's basically saying that the Department of Vital Statistics will be barred from issuing birth certificates to foreign-born babies in the USA, that they will not be allowed to have birth certificates, that there will be no uh, work authorization for temporary protected status people in the United States, that illegals under temporary protected status will not be able to get work permits. Things like stopping the data centers, ending H-1Bs by basically fining the companies the amounts of money that they would be grifting by hiring an H-1B over an American worker. All kinds of amazing things. So he's basically saying there's over 1,900 companies in Florida that would have to be fined for their H-1B hiring. And so very, very exciting stuff with Fishback. It's kind of the thing we want to say when people are like, third party. Yeah, this is a successive thing. Okay, Trump has done the heavy lifting to actually fight and save this country to this time. And then there's going to be new people. There's going to be new people coming in to do the next layer, right? The next layer. And so James Fishback, I think it's Fishback 2026.com if you want to check him out. Jay Collins, the other guy who's of course been under DeSantis, who's done such great work as well. He's at jforflorida.com. You can have a look and compare those. And we also have in West Virginia and Louisiana joining Florida, the AGs there are joining Florida in their criminal investigations into Anthony Fauci. So very exciting there that we're now seeing this build across states. This is the strategy to how he can be criminally prosecuted. We, of course, have Rick Scott after the vote to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress yesterday. Rick Scott saying he's going to hand deliver it to the Department of Justice himself. And so these are very positive and exciting things. We have Fauci cosplaying out in front of his house, acting like he's so sad and he's so oppressed, while he keeps bringing his garbage out in front of his little DC fancy townhouse, right? He's still teaching over there at Georgetown, right? And so it's interesting to watch all of this happening when really and driving with his wife, and his wife actually is the one who should be brought up on top of him. She was in charge of like all the funding, right, at NAIAD. She was the one working closely with all of these universities that were getting so involved in all of this gain of function research. So let's get her up in front of the Congress, see what she's able to do. I don't think she got a pardon. So very interesting there. We also have AG Paxton in Texas, forcing the Children's Hospital in Texas, in Dallas, that did so much of the mutilation of the young people and the children to do with trying to convince them they can change their sex, and just the horrifying stuff there. They are being forced to open a detransitioning clinic and to offer the services for free for anyone to detransition. I mean, that's even horrifying too, what could happen there. But, we pray for these children who went through this. It's so awful. So many of them come out and said how their lives were wrecked, their futures wrecked, they're sterile for life, all of this. And so he's making them pay millions in penalties and basically offer them free treatment to help reverse the mutilations they were put through. So that is all very, very good. And so just before I go, I'm gonna talk about what Tucker had to say last night in his hour and a half and plus video, kind of tossing out there the idea of a third party. We all must have it because, of course, the no war president has brought us to war. And, it's so horrible, and not doing anything for we the people, is just nothing. But we need a third party, right? We need a third party. MAGA is the third party. We're just up against a giant mass of cabals upon cabals that want to destroy the USA. And we have a disgusting, awful Congress and Senate, except for the good ones, which are you can count on a couple hands for each one, right? Senate or House. And so this whole let's blame the senile 80-year-old Trump is so amazing to me. It's amazing to watch people drop away because Trump said something mean, right? And it's also especially amazing to watch someone, who has made tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars, um, off putting out fake news for so many years, and coming out of a CIA family, just, you know, talking about this. It is just kind of funny, right? Well, we're watching these redemption arcs for so many who have overcome, like him, his ways of the past, right? To come over to understanding how the neocons are evil, how there is this awful thing that is this machine that's destroying the country and the world, and that's the redemption arc we love. But now, um, like I've said in my last video, there is a place for all of this because it's really important that the next thing come next. But it is interesting to watch this sort of first, JV attempt, in my opinion, to kind of put this out to the hearts and minds. And of course, there's a reference of the video, and hopefully you get a laugh at my thumbnail. Of we had MTG, and you've got Massey and Tucker and Joe Kent, and they're hanging out in Trump in Tucker's like super nice, um, um, hunting resort there, or hunting cabin on his land. I think in Maine. It's just huge swaths of land in Maine that he's bought up um, with money he got from Fox News, right? And they're all hanging, just enjoying the good life there. And Marjorie Taylor Greene's got her $8 million house down in Costa Rica, and her, Massey's gone down there to hang. It's just very interesting. They're the people who are running this gig. But anyway, he did put out what he thinks are the important things to want in this next third party. And it's basically it's 10 things, and it's weird how they're put, but he's saying how America should be, and he says it should be fair, sovereign, productive, beautiful, healthy, honest, optimistic. There's another one. Where's the other ones? And then education, but it doesn't match how the other words go. Anyway, decent. Anyway, he uses these terms that are very secular, and I mean, what I mean is that they're it's just kind of a long diatribe about between what's good and what's bad, and there's a lot of great points, but it was just an odd hour and a half. I've linked it below. You can watch it, and there's a lot that's really hopeful and great in it, but it was a strange way to introduce their what would be third-party policies. He's kind of saying these are our sort of moral objectives for the country, and have a look, because I think we might want to have a third party, right? When we've heard people like Joe Kent go on the Piers Morgan show and say, yes, we're starting a third party. So kind of a behind, sort of through the back door kind of way of starting it out there. And again, as I've said, we have a third party if people could dig in and commit. It's not always going to look like how you want it to. It doesn't, right? It's called a war that we're in. And you can't keep saying, I wish we weren't at war. We are. Okay, it's either die or fight. That's where we're at. And the massive map of fighting is so immense that most of us, including myself, cannot understand all the pieces. Okay, it has been developed with intricacy for 80 years plus, and now to take energy, worldwide energy control, and it's terrorism weapon arm, and to take that down, and to make the U.S. energy independent and dominant after all this time and all the warfare against us, where we have everything going for us in this country, geographically, the richness of this land, the richness of our civics and our heritage as the freest constitutional republic ever to exist. The all of that, trying to reinsure that. That's why I think it can be great that there's this third party discussion. Get people involved. Get people involved. But don't base it on hatred of the 80-year-old senile Trump, because that's a bunch of BS. It's absolute lies. And I think everybody knows that, even who's saying it. They don't like the way things have gone for them, and they don't like the way things, they don't like that they're having to put up with the fact that they couldn't win in the things they were doing at the time they were doing it. And it's very, very frustrating. It is very frustrating. It's frustrating for all of us. We've all lost so much, and yet we keep going. We keep going. And so I'm going to leave it there. I thought I might dig deeper into that third party thing, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Okay. And so, yeah, there's room for all kinds of discussion and things that can get talked about. I think it's great. And for everybody who thinks that we're going to know everything right now, it's absolutely not going to happen. And so fight where you can be effective. How about you fight where you can be effective, where you can actually do stuff instead of just tearing down things that are in the process of being rebuilt. Do stuff, and stop tearing down. That's my 2 cents here on a Friday. So, TGIF. Thanks for watching. If you found something valuable in this video, you'd like to support the channel, it's what makes it happen. So your support is super appreciated, as well as all I said before, your liking, subscribing, doing all that to try to break through this shadow ban that has been here. And also, one way, if you can't support the channel because you just can't, because we're so strapped these days for money, say you have the video on and you're like, I got to take a bathroom break, or I got to go refill my water or whatever. When one of the ads comes up, as long as it's not one of those disgusting ones that sometimes they put on the channel specifically to harass, you could just let it play while you go to the bathroom or whatever. It's lame. When I used to be, previously, I never had any video, no ads left, no ads allowed on my channel. But now, like, forget it. If I don't have ads, you'll just never see a video from me. It never will happen. They won't allow it on the platforms. But if you can't contribute, it's a lame way for the channel to make a tiny bit of money. So there's my plug on that. And I'm not going to plug for C60 Evo tonight. I'm just going to remind you, 10% off for viewers, 15% off of the great c60evo.com/YAFTV. Watch my videos about it if you don't know about it. But if you want to clean out the brain and you want to clean out the body of all the garbage that is interfering with your mitochondria, and be able to flush it out of your cells, this is an incredible product. People are using it hugely for the big C, for all the degenerative diseases, because it helps to renew your cellular health. It's against anti-inflammaging, okay, with everything about oxidative stress that destroys the integrity of our bodies. This helps to restore your bodies to its, the way it was supposed to function in God's divine design of our incredible beings. So check it out below, and we'll talk more about it next week, as always. But thanks so much for watching, everyone. So appreciate you. Get out and enjoy your family, friends, or get active this weekend. So many, candidates out there just need people to go do lawn signs. They need you to make calls. There's a lot of ways in getting together with your local patriots, the people working locally, is how you get new friends. It's how you get a whole new community, right? And share it with your church friends as well. So have a great weekend. You are free. I'll see you on Monday.